Yeah, Squiggles, I don't know who the fuck you think you are or who you think you're talking to, but I don't take orders from you either.
So if certain species are very similar morphologically and physiologically to another species, and DNA is the code that we are created in order to, basically hold our genetic information, then wouldn't you imagine that if they are more similar, they would have a more similar genetic code and would be created that way? I mean, I don't see this as a strong point.
Yeah, the idea that morphology is the signature of an intelligent designer is absolutely testable and absolutely disprovable. Would you like me to disprove it for you?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. What would be a good example? Sharks and dolphins, they share the same kind of environment, right?
Dolphins breathe air and sharks breathe water, but do they share the same?
If they yeah,
I mean, we share the same type of environment with bacteria. That's not really.
What is it that a dolphin and a shark have to both be morphologically, quote unquote, designed for?
Many things. I'm assuming you're saying swimming, but breathing as well. They're much different. This is not a good argument. We're in the same environment as bacteria.
Breathing is a singular. I like how you picked one trait about them and said that it blows up every other comparison we could do between them. That's not how it works at all. So they share the overwhelming number, like from a design perspective, smooth, streamlined, torpedo-shaped bodies, fins and flippers, right?
Yeah, but I think that they're much different. I think they were designed much differently.
Their design is actually remarkably similar.
Okay, I think that it's different, but subjective.
Right. So what's more similar to a dolphin, a hippopotamus or a shark?
It depends on what you're saying. Like, are you saying the fact that they breathe air?
Which one's designed more similar? All things considered, a hippopotamus or a shark to a dolphin?
You might say a shark.
Correct. Which one is genetically more similar?
I'm assuming that you're going to say the hippopotamus and the dolphin.
Yeah. So,
right. So I think
morphology, as guided by genes, being an indication of creation, is falsifiable, and it's been falsified.
It's not so. In order to establish cause and effect, hold on, you keep interrupting me. It's really annoying. In order to establish cause and effect, were these things? Did these things come about? Did these different organisms come about through successive mutations in the genome? You need to establish that cause and effect. You would need to do a controlled experiment, which is what we do to establish cause and effect.
Literally false.
Okay, then how else would you do it?
How do you solve a murder, Taylor?
You can.
How do you solve a murder, Taylor? By looking for the evidence post fact.
Is there any moderation here? This guy is interrupting me constantly. So you can theorize, that these things, they look like this. It's what we're assuming happened. But yeah, in science, to explain natural phenomena and in reality, what you do is a controlled experiment. Now, a murder
literally
would
false.
Be as well that we'd. What? That's not false.
It is literally false.
To establish cause
Taylor,
and effect.
Are you a flat earther? Do you think black holes exist?
There's a purpose to doing a controlled experiment because you can isolate the variables and really get down.
Do black holes exist?
And then
do black holes exist?
Hold on, I'm still answering your other question, dude. You're acting kind of unhinged. Okay,
do black holes exist? I'm proving that your entire line of reasoning here, I forgot to do the air quotes, is completely false. Do black holes exist?
Okay. Hold on. Can I answer your other
It's
question?
not going to
A
go
murder
any
would be
other
another
way
thing
other than the
after the
way
fact.
I want it to go. Because I'm
Figuring,
the very special guest and it's my very special day. Do black holes
okay.
exist?
A murder would be after the
Do
fact. You
black
can't
holes
establish cause
exist?
and effect. Yes. And then
Did
moving
we do
on, there's different
experiments to prove that
functions.
black holes exist?
There's different
What
functions for
controlled
different vitamin C
experiment that
genes.
makes black holes have we
Hold
done?
on. Hold on.
What
The different
controlled
hold on.
experiment
Different vitamin
that
C genes
creates black
actually
holes
do have
did we
different
do?
functions.
Have we ever done?
But to be
You're
fair,
not
this
getting
is
A
away
black
with
hole
this, Taylor. I
existing.
don't care. You can
Hold
fucking
on.
leave.
A
What
black hole
controlled
existing.
experiment did we ever
A
do
black
that
hole
creates black
existing.
holes?
That's an observational study, not a cause and effect
It's a
analysis.
scientific fact that black
You're
holes
not
exist,
establishing cause. You're
and
not
their
establishing
existence
cause and
was
effect in that case.
predicted by
Yo,
scientific
chill
work.
out, bro. Yo, you
You're
gotta
not
chill out, dude. I don't
establishing.
care if you're the guest. You're not gonna come in here and act like that, bro. Unhinged.
Yeah, Squiggles, I don't know
You
who the
go
fuck you
one at a
think
time,
you are
dude.
or
It's
who you
not,
think you're talking to, but I
bro.
don't take
I'm a
orders
mod.
from you
I
either.
came in here. Well, guess what? I'm a
You should
mod.
just be more
I
respectful.
don't care.
You can't. I don't care if you're a guest, bro, and you're a little special boy, your little specialness. You can't come in here and act like that, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually,
you're
I
being
can.
You treat a female with respect. How about that?
Squiggles,
How'd your mom?
shut
Did your
up.
mom
I don't
raise you,
care.
dude, or what? All right, dude. Listen,
You don't have to
you're
get
not gonna
triggered.
run in. You're not
all
gonna run the
right,
show,
all
bro.
right, all right.
If
I'm
Omnivore's not
I'm
gonna
nodding.
step
Hey,
in, if Omnivore's not gonna step in, I will.
Lion, hold on. So
Why is nobody
first off,
holding Taylor accountable from dodging all of the questions? That
I
we
am trying
didn't
to answer
create
you.
black holes with a
Keep
controlled
interrupting me.
experiment.
Just a minute.
So
Just a minute. I'm modding.
I will be on
If
better behavior from here on out.
you
I
lower
promise.
the heat level, thank you.
Taylor, go ahead and say whatever you need to say.
I was doing some research on some of the claims that you made. I looked into the vitamin C genes. One of the genes is unknown, but the other two have different functions. And then also I was reading the paper about the big birds, and apparently there is some evidence that they can still mate with original the original species, making it not a completely new species in the sense. But there are there are differences as well in the birds too, though. But apparently it's not completely new species. And I can share these links with you as well. I shared the mosquito link with you already.
Okay, cool. So let's go back to what we were talking about most recently. There are no scientific controlled experiments that create black holes, but nobody, except a flat earther or whatever, says that black holes don't exist. So why is it that I do not require a controlled experiment to know about the existence of black holes but I do for some reason need a controlled experiment to when it comes to the genetic relatedness between sharks, hippos, and dolphins?
So doing the experiment where you're saying like the hippos and dolphins are similar, like you're like comparing their genes, and you're gonna say, okay, well this one's more like this, and then make inferences based on it. Like, since you believe we evolved, you're gonna make evolutionary inferences based on that. So
I actually I was doing a creationist inference, because I took what you said about morphology being a product of design and morphology being a consequence of genetics to be able to make a prediction about the evidence for design we see in nature, and it fell apart. So I was actually taking your view on that.
Okay, I don't take the view that we can look at genes and then make inferences after the fact on either creation or evolution, because I think
analyzing the genes is not done after the fact. The prediction about relatedness was made decades before we could study the genes. The genes.
So the effect.
What's that?
I was just going to say, so the effect is what we see today with the biodiversity, and then so you're saying the cause was that we evolved. I'm saying the cause is creation, and then so to establish
my
your
idea
cause
is
and
testable.
effect. Okay, so then show me that. And then also, like,
The
so
entire
so
field
to
of
establish cause
genetics
and effect,
is
you
the
need to do
test.
controlled experiments so you can isolate for variables to, establish cause and effect.
The,
So that's
the,
why I really put more credence on like the laboratory experiments, like, Linsky's one that you mentioned earlier that would be a really good piece of evidence, like, the Linsky long-term E. coli experiment, stuff like that.
what scientific evidence of creation do you have that
Um,
establishes cause and effect?
well, so I think that that creation was created by something metaphysical. We wouldn't exactly be able to replicate it, but we can make inferences. Like, for example, I would say, the idea that life formed by a creator. In these original life experiments, you would need a lot of heavy intervention in these experiments, controlling the pH and temperatures, and original life wouldn't be something that naturally would occur. I think it requires intelligent design. And
So
looking at the
what
original life
scientific evidence of
experiment,
design do you have?
the fact that we cannot reproduce life forming, that life doesn't
That's
naturally
not
form on its own.
evidence. That's something that somebody else can't do. Like, by
Okay, so I
evidence, I
don't
mean
think that.
positive evidence in favor of your claim. And you also seem to demand cause and effect as part of the body of supporting evidence. So what positive scientific evidence for creation do you have? And can you tell me anything about the cause and effect of how creation works?
Right. So with the evolutionary theory, we have you're working in the naturalistic world. If you're saying this is something that naturally occurs, then that should be something that should be reproducible. Whereas if I'm saying I need a divine intervention to make these things happen, that would not be something that would be reproducible. And I
So
argue
you
that, the
can
lack of
never,
reproduction
ever
from the
have any
naturalistic
evidence in
explanation.
support of your claim?
I think there is evidence. I think that the DNA code gives good evidence. The complex specific information we only see from intelligent designers. That's one thing. The
In what
amounts of
sense is that
intervention organized
scientific
research.
evidence?
Well,
What
you
experiment
can.
for this do you have?
Well, we can. I proposed an experiment recently with eggs, who is on here, and was saying that using a random nucleotide generator, or just putting random nucleotide sequences, would not lead to anything productive. Whereas if you had an intelligently designed genetic code, it would actually be functional, and you would require intelligent design.
Taylor, do you know what natural selection is?
Yes, like survival of the fittest.
Explain how natural selection occurs.
So basically, the most weak organisms would die off,
Oh,
and then that
God.
would lead to more fit organisms.
Okay.
Right? Is that wrong? Is there something I said wrong?
To say that it's about who's weak and who isn't is so far off.
Yeah, and so the more fit
But you're
organisms would
missing
reproduce.
so many details.
Reproduction of the fittest organisms would carry on their genes. And so then the non-fit organisms.
Okay. Is
would
that a
not be able to
random
survive.
process?
I think that there wouldn't be any intentionality or end in mind. So it depends on what your definition of random would be.
Yeah, well, that's not randomness.
I think it's a byproduct of nature. Therefore, I would say yes, that is random, but people can disagree on the definition of random.
Your definition of random seems to be no teleos, which is not what random is. That is kind of a sense of, like, people say, oh, that was so random what happened the other day, because it just, why did it happen? I have no idea. It happened for no reason or whatever, but that's a very different sense of randomness, because the kind of randomness you invoked in your experiment is a completely different kind of randomness. That is where things are, where there are no strong antecedents, where things are not causally linked or whatever. Natural selection is absolutely not like that. It is very non-random because there are antecedents for it. Like, the environment produces conditions that result in selecting certain, whatever we want to call it, phenotypes, genetic combinations, or whatever, to be selected for. So your analogy where you say, oh, well, I would test it by saying randomness can't do it, you're completely straw manning science's view of how any of this would have happened. So it would have been a inappropriate experiment. It'd be the equivalent of me saying, I can prove Jesus isn't the Messiah. I'll put $1 under my pillow, and if the tooth fairy doesn't come, then it's false. No, the tooth fairy has nothing to do with Jesus, and randomness is not how natural selection or evolution works.
But the natural selection of fit organisms wouldn't give us different types of organisms. That you're basically, the speciation is coming from an idea that the DNA mutated, and whenever the DNA mutation would happen, it wouldn't be something that would be like planned. It would be like kind of an accidental mutation. So it would be led by these random sequences of accidental events.
The random sequences produces the variation in the population. Darwin laid all of this out. There exists in every population a degree of variation. Some of that variation is more conducive for survival advantages in the population. Therefore, organisms with those better, like with the more favorable variations, statistically are more likely to reproduce, which drives, that's called directional selection. It drives selection in a direction, and that creates this sort of it just drives changes in the species. Like, for example, insular dwarfism or insular gigantism is a good example. It's the same kind of organism, but its body size becomes dramatically different over long periods of time because of different selective pressures. There's, like on the island where the pygmy mammoths, where I live in California, so I've been to the La Brea Tar Pit Museum. They have really cool life-size recreations of different mammoth species. The Colombian mammoth is absolutely enormous. It's way bigger than today's African elephants. But there was also a pygmy mammoth, and they were only about the size of a cow, a little bit smaller than that, actually. In terms of weight, they're probably heavier, actually. Now, it's like whatever the ancestral population for those Channel Island mammoths was, they weren't the size of the pygmy mammoths. It took, and they never gave, the ancestral population never gave birth to a mammoth specifically that small, but over huge numbers of generations, it moved in that direction.
Okay. Is that something that we watched happen, or?
Well, it's something we have extremely strong evidence for.
Okay.
I.e., pygmy mammoths exist on that island, and the logical explanation for why they would be smaller is so incredibly obvious, it hardly needs explaining. I'll do it anyway. An elephant is a fucking huge animal, and an island doesn't have a lot of resources, so there's pressure for them to become smaller, to have less, how would I even put that? Like demand for food and resources and whatever on the island. So all other mammoths are significantly larger than them. The ones only on this island are significantly smaller. I don't know about like transitional forms for pygmy mammoths. I don't know about that. I kind of doubt that there are many of those, but the logic and the inference, which you invoked inferences for your creation model, so anybody gets to make inferences. It's not unscientific or unfair to do that. It all fits. There's no contradiction in any of that. And it makes perfect logical and scientific sense.